So integration activities all throughout the year. If you're providing students with opportunities to focus on external content with specific activities. Now, I do have this, when I made this PowerPoint and these notes, I should have grabbed some updated ones, and I apologize. This was right at the beginning of the year, so they don't have, they're not completely full, but you'll see where we're heading. Oopsie. Just get them both open. Okay, so when we are doing our word processing skills at the beginning of the year, we set up this notes document. So basic concepts of information management, this is our external notes, and learning about styles and section breaks and headers and footers and putting in a table of contents. We learn all of that, so we learn our word processing skills, and we just set up all of the headings that you would need to know for the external. And I let them pick their own styles. You'll see my other girl, who I have, her styles are just hideous. But she's very, very smart. Holly went to the computer programming camp for the girls, and she's a smart cookie, but her styles are less hideous. So again, they've made their custom styles, they've done a table of contents, and we went through just at the beginning. First thing we did is we just set up the headings like operating system, purpose, key features, interaction with application software. We put those all in. Those are the things they need to know for the external. And we started taking some notes, you know, about what the purpose of the operating system is and some of the key features. We did a brainstorm in class and how it interacts. And then I said to them, and this is where I start getting them to do some screenshotting. So, for example, we'll take some notes as a class, do a class discussion, and then I say, and it's also a great activity if you're going to be out. So then you say, open up your external notes document and do some screenshots that show that you understand those concepts. So if you're away for the day, they can open up that and just do some screenshotting, and a reliever doesn't have to know a lot about computing to help you out. So here you can see, we can see the operating system running different software applications. It allows it to have, you know, when we're talking about multitasking, it allows it to have more than one window open at a time. You can see the CPU and the operating system, the percentage that it's allocated. So they started screenshotting just things that they understand about the operating system and making little call-outs. Here she's put the operating system communicates with application software. For example, when the operating one, we know that one wants to print a document, the operating system is able to show all the printers available to print to and send the document to the selected printer. And I didn't tell them what screenshots to pick. I just said, see if you can find examples that illustrate the different key features of the operating system that we've discussed. Here, the screenshot of the operating system maintains files in the My Documents library. So it's talking about, you know, that file manipulation, file management. And here, let's see, screenshot of this operating system allowing me to paste from another application because it can multitask and it stores data in the computer's temporary memory. And, oh, this was a screenshot of her. She said, how do I do that? So that's the operating system. She's clicked on it, and the operating system is opening Adobe Illustrator and running it. So that's just for how you can interact with the GUI. Application software. At this point, we had just discussed word processing because it was the very beginning of the year, and we talked about commercial and shareware and, you know, the differences between different types of software licensing, and brought that into ethical issues a little bit. Talked about public domain software and open source software.
Can I just ask, those
Sure.
notes, were they generated by you, or were they, like, would every student have those same top notes? Or do you discuss it and then say, right now go away and create your own notes?
Well, they would probably have a lot of these same ones because we're doing those as a class discussion.
Right.
So this is all part of our class discussion.
Yeah.
And some might have some different bits in there, but some very similar. But I don't let them then on the external. I say, that's what some of them, we'll get to that, but some of them then last year said, oh, I'll just turn that in. I said, no, you will not. That's things that we did in class. Now you go find how you've applied that to your other internal assessment class. They could look back on their own notes, so it was an incentive for them to take really good notes. But no, they couldn't just print, I didn't let them just print this off and turn it in, because then that top part is too much of our brainstorming in class. So this we would have discussed, like that we would have discussed. But, and again, I would not expect in their external report, I wouldn't want to see any of that, just word for word, copy and paste out of these notes either. And then this is where they had to go find some key features that they've used. So creating styles on Word so it is much more efficient. And again, bringing in that notion of efficiency for the internal. What are some efficient tools and techniques that you can use? Some formatting features. And Elsa, the other one I had already written up her justification, or started writing her justification of use for a task. They'd have to think of that themselves, and that usually comes in, well, it will come in, I'll show you in their internals. File management, we talked about file types. We went in and here we looked at the different file types. We turned on the file type extensions so that they could look at those things, and showed how here, if it, the document will open with Word. If I don't have the application, the file won't open. So we talked about that whole file type association. And we took the file extensions off and how it wouldn't find it without the file extensions. And then some different word processing file types we had discussed already. Ethical issues. These are some ethical issues we had come up with at the time. So, if you look at Elsa's, which I had open, you can see her lovely use of purple and green. Yuck. See, she's got some different, a few different things, because it just depends on how she was taking her notes. And
can I just ask, you said you wouldn't expect them to hand just that in
no,
as part of their report, but they can quote that, but they do have to then take it a step further.
right,
Is that what you're
yes,
saying?
yes.
Okay.
They can look back at these notes and use some of their information from that note, these notes, but I want them to take it a step further, yes. And I make them relate all of this to the development of their internals, and that's why it becomes more personalized. Mm-hmm. So these are their notes, but then you'll see on the external, I say, show me the key features that you used when creating your 3 internal assessment tasks, the different application software, why did you select that application software, and so they're all only able to get sort of screenshots of their own work, and that personalizes it and gets all those authenticity issues. But they can look back at this and say, oh yeah, we talked about an operating system, and we talked about those key features, so they can remind themselves. And you see hers, she just did some different screenshots, so hers were very short here for right now. It's operating with the application, managing security, managing files. Application software. And she's put a little bit more in here, like that allows you to follow document design principles and makes it easier to use. And she talked about the multiple save options that are available in Word. Word recognizes hyperlinks. So again, you can see already that Elsa's is just a wee bit different, going off and doing some different screenshots and personalizing her knowledge versus Holly. It allows you to make this table of contents, and she started to write a justification of use. So this basically means why you choose a program. E.g., I have Word when I want to make a large document. However, I only want to quickly write down notes, I'd use Pages because it opens faster. Most of the time I just use Word because it's compatible and most other users have it, but another reason I would use Pages is it's compatible with Numbers and Keynote. I mean, I can automatically transfer information, etc. So she started to think about why she would pick that. So so we start this document at the beginning of the year as part of our word processing skills and introduction to the external. And then when it's relevant, I'll just say, all right, open up your external notes document and let's add a bit more based on what I showed you before from our outline. And again, a lot of times just as a really good test when I'm away, I say, add some screenshots in there, show that you understand what those notes we're talking about. You can do it as homework tasks. Oh, wait. Previous. You click through a bit. This is this Newlands College. And, oh, this went to John. John sent it to me. This is a lady, Margaret McClay, and she sent an email, and I thought I would just share because she said I could share. She said that she decided to really make a big deal of the external as well and integrated it. So she said she set up a report with subheadings, which it sounds like that's what we did, saved it to their home directories. They created a title page to personalize it, make a big deal out of it. Developed and used teaching and learning activities to focus on specific topics. I scoured NZ resources and used ideas, etc. Showed DVDs from BEA, Teenagers and Internet Ethics, oxymoron, ICT in the Real World. I have that one too. I've shown that one. I don't know if you've seen that. It's one of those BEA DVDs, ICT in the Real World. Just shows how in a publishing company how they use ICT and different applications and why it's important.
It's BEA.
It's that Australian DVD company that based in. That's also a good one. And then she said, I use literacy strategies questions. And when ready or at convenient time, students completed an entry in the report following stems. And I've attached those. Each stem took an hour. And some students had to come in during lunchtime to complete them. During senior exam session, they completed their ethics stem. Finally, she allowed an extra period in class and 3 lunchtimes. At the conclusion, students printed. She looked over them, gave them general feedback before filing them away. I noted incomplete entries or made comments like more screenshots. When they were printed and signed, I quickly compared their final reports with the printouts before I signed them. Final comment, some students did not complete all the entries, and yet they passed. The students who did not pass from my class were very incomplete. So that was her take on it. And on the, in your folder, I think, and there's a folder external, those doc files she sent me, those were her different tasks that she had, so you've got those to look at. So I I think she had them do a big research project. Their first one, they looked at computing pioneers, that's right. I think this was just the development of the internet and its impact on society. I don't know that this is such an important one, except for that she was just having them look at sort of the foundation of computing. And it's not, I mean, I shouldn't say important, it's probably not essential content for the external, but she was probably having them getting into some writing and thinking and processing. I'll open a different one. Here's another opportunity. What'd you say? Do you use a newer version of Microsoft Office at home? Comment on the newer different features. Can you give an example of how you use these? Comment on the status of Microsoft software as the most widely used business applications in the world. So she was giving them little activities to start filling in their entries. So they're in here for you. And sorry, I have that on there. I don't have access to that, but the other person from Bayfield who gave the presentation with me, Rob Wood, he has the students complete little blog entries. So he puts out questions and he has them blog it, and he has access to all of their blogs, and then he just will go in and make sure that they've done that little blog entry. And he might make a quick comment on it, like, you know, not complete enough or etc. So he's doing it that way. He did it that way last year. And when they wrote their paper for their exam, they had, while we're on that topic, what we did, which I'll explain later, but I had them at their end of year school exams. They had their laptops, they had their notes, and they had their internal assessments. And they all sat in the hall in school exams just like they do for maths or whatever, and I gave them their assessment task and they had to write their report, and they could get anything out of their own work, but that was it. And then at the end, we went around with a memory stick and we saved where they were at that stage. At the end of the 3-hour school exam. Luke and I did look over them, and I know that this was out on NZACDITT about the amount of helping or whatever, or feedback to give to the student. All I did is we made up a sheet with all of the achievement criteria, achieve merit, excellence, and I highlighted in green that achievement criteria if I thought, yes, that you've nailed that. I highlighted it in yellow if they had attempted it, but I thought they needed more detail in that area. And if I didn't highlight it, that meant they hadn't actually attempted to write about that specific criteria. Now, I don't know if this will help anybody, but I know for us, for our end of year prize giving, they go based on their exam marks, their internal exam marks. That's one of the things. So based on that, I just gave them a 1 to 8 scale on each criteria. You know how they're doing that new grade score marking? I thought, oh, I'll just try that. So they either got a 0, you know, or a 1 or a 2 or a 3 or 5, 6, 7, 8, and then I tallied that up and gave them a number at the bottom, and I used that basically for our exam mark, just for distinguishing for prize giving. So they had that feedback, and maybe, like Margaret said, I put a few general comments like include more screenshots or write more of your own understandings or whatever, a few, and then they came back remember last year was sort of a strange year, right when we came back, we had that 1 week right before they had to be sent away, and we gave them the first 3 days back of supervised class time just to edit it, and then they saved it as a PDF and we sent them away. So that's how we handled sort of authenticity. What is everybody doing? What are your thoughts on that? And we discussed it as in other subjects, like if they're taking their maths practice assessment or their English practice assessment during school exams, the teacher will mark it and give them feedback and say, you need to study this or you need to do that. And and so that you can do better at the exam at the end of the year. And we thought, if we give them no feedback whatsoever, are we disadvantaging them compared to other subjects, which they're getting a bit, they get a practice go, and they get a bit of feedback, but I have to say, I thought it would be unethical as well if I said, write this about operating systems, or write this about word processing, or whatever. That's why I thought, well, at least letting them know, this is where you're sitting right now. If you're happy with this not achieved, you go ahead and you turn it in. If you want to, think you can add more, then I gave them feedback where I thought that they were weak or they hadn't addressed that issue. But it wasn't specific feedback as in do this. It was just feedback in, I don't think you've addressed this criteria fully. And yes, more personal, most of my feedback I think was more personal examples, more explanation, more personal examples, so that you're showing your own understanding. Yes.
How many students do you have in your year 11 class?
I think I had we have about 22 each. So.
And how long would it have taken you to have gone and read them all and come up with that feedback? Hours.
Oh yeah, probably a couple of hours. But I guess, again, we talked about that, and the, as parallel to other departments in the school, they're all expected during our exam time to mark an exam and give them feedback, and that goes on their end of year report. So we just decided we would just go in line and do what everybody else was doing during exam time. And I know digital tech or computing or whatever you're called, we haven't usually done that in the past. We've sort of, either they don't give us an exam slot, or maybe we've been giving them an internal during exam time, whatever it is. So we just thought, okay, this is our opportunity. We've got our report external. I said, I want a 3-hour exam slot, just like everybody else, and we're doing. And this year, so I was just discussing with Milna on the way in, we have a mid-year exam the week before Queen's birthday, and then we've got end of year. So I am actually going to give them, because they've all completed one internal assessment so far, and then in year 12, I've already had some guest speakers come in. So at the mid-year exam, I'm going to sit them down and they're going to write they're going to start writing. I thought, and all of my students should have commented on, for year 11, key features of Word, key features of databases, any ethical issues that they've had to consider so far, anything they know about operating systems. They should already be writing that and having that. And I'm going to pick it up, and I pick it up too, so I've got a copy, and I know if they've modified it after that. So I'll have a date stamped copy. I keep that, but at least they've made a start at it. And I thought that would actually make it even a little bit more manageable for them. So that was my first thing. And again, I don't worry about it too much, because they have to the way we handle it, they have to comment on their process and their knowledge and what they did for their internal assessment. So they can't have screenshots. Like, I can't screenshot the list of work and write about that. So that helps. The other thing, and I understand where you're coming from too, but again, in technology, like for my level 3s, they've always had to submit this report, and I have the same guest speakers in. So, because we get, for level 3 technology, the report, or the current external report, is that they have to look at technologists' practicing technologists, how they practice, what are commonalities between the technologists. So I always get future and tech speakers to come in that are producing ICT outcomes like that. One of mine is a database developer, and one's a computer programmer, and one's doing computational modeling. So they all talk about what they do in their jobs and how they go about making their outcomes. all the girls actually have the same opportunities. They've got the same notes. We have the same guest speakers. And it's amazing how different chalk and cheese their reports end up being at the end of the year. And I've always handled it for that one, I've always handled it that way for level 3. They write their report during the exam time. I look at it. Usually I'll just say the same thing, like you haven't actually, I don't see any compare and contrast in your report. If the grammar is awful, I won't fix it, but I might say, sit down with an adult to help you proofread, which would help your presentation. Like your parents, because I figure the parents don't know enough about the topic to actually help them with any content, but they can help them proofread it so that the poor marker isn't wading through poor grammar. And then they submit it at the end of the year, and it's always been that way, but I always feel like that they haven't copied. I don't know why. They probably have more opportunity to do that, especially in that level 3 report, because they've got the guest speakers, but they come out, they're their own written report, and I'll have the whole gamut with the same guest speakers from not achieved to excellence. So, and we debrief, like every time a guest speaker comes at level 3, for example, the next day we debrief as a class, and I said, now, did you get that point? Did you understand what she was saying about, you know, this? So they've all had the same opportunity, but just like anything else, I think they take it in and process it differently. I don't think that there's a problem with that. I think it is that line of professionalism, though, that we can't be correcting students' reports and saying, write this here, because that's then overstepping the bounds.
I'd love to see some
yeah.
guidance
Yeah.
that is suggested nationally.
Yeah.
Because I'd like to, I mean, I think we probably are now in
Yes.
agreement, but I'd like to see across the country.
And Rob, I know Rob, who did this with the blog entries, he did look at them, but he gave them their blog entries, the computer, their notes, 3-hour exam. He just said done and dusted. That's it. And he did get good results, but they were ready. They knew that. They knew they had their 3-hour exam time. Yeah. And then they turned it forward. This will work out quite well. I'll show you our internal tasks and some of the example student responses from the internals, and you'll be able to see where what I've asked them to do in their internals has set them up to draw that information into their external.
Julie, can I just ask, I mean, this is what you've done from the beginning of the year.
Yes.
And obviously quite a few of us haven't done that approach. It's not too late.
No, that's why I wanted, in Otago, we ran this sort of week 2 or 3, just to get people thinking, oh, I could do this. And I know lots of people went home and said, or left the workshop, oh, well, we've just done GIMP. I'm going to have them screenshot some of their GIMP features or whatever. It's not too late at all, because you may have done one assessment already, but you can have them go back to that one, and then from now on just think, while they're doing their assessment, while you're doing your teaching, just have those opportunities for them to start screenshotting some of their work or writing it down and thinking about it. Yeah. I think if you do it now, there'll be plenty of time. If you try to do it those 2 weeks at the end of the year, right before this report is due.
No, they need to get that material now.
Yeah.
Can I just give you all a report back from Polytech as well? If you remember at our first meeting, we had a whole lot of suggestions as to the skills up, or the upskilling that we needed to go ahead in terms of more detailed level 2 and level 3. And I've been on to Chris a couple of times. He said, well, Alison's looking at it. I actually met up with Graham Moore on Thursday, and he said, yes, he and Alison will look at it again, because I wanted to be able to tell you today what they've actually got organised. Well, they're looking at it at this stage. But I think we will probably get more input from there, in that we've got this course today, we've got the programming one in 2 weeks' time, and it's what they're going to offer us from there. So I am chasing it up. They are aware that we do need those courses. Thank you to those who did give feedback so that they know what we actually needed. But it's now just waiting for them to do stuff from there. Yeah.
So, do you know if they've, you know how we would put forward ideas for getting a student? I put forward 2 ideas because I was hoping to get a student to help with their digital class and also to help me with programming. Have you heard of anybody that actually got a student?
No, I don't know. I think it's a case of you've just got to keep emailing Chris, because Chris McCarthy, just say to him, where are the students that we want to, just keep sitting on them.
I would love a programming one because I've got so many kids that want to just go with programming.
Right, okay. Just keep emailing Chris McCarthy. You got his email? Yep. Just keep chasing it up from your perspective there. If push comes to shove, you could also email Tim Bell and say, is there anyone doing a PhD or honours in his education field, because he's really pushing that this could be their case study and they might want to come and do it at your school. So contact him in that respect as well. Okay, might do that. Okay, right. Thank you, Julie. Over to you.